Hi, everyone. Welcome to class today. I apologize for the late sending of the Zoom information. I somehow forgot to include that in when I sent the assignment. That's where I usually include it, and for some reason I forgot it. But I realized I have a class before yours, and I sent it to both, so we should be okay. We had good attendance in the other class. I don't think it affected it. So today I'm gonna go over a little bit about the assignment and talk a little bit about writing issues I saw. And also we'll finish up chapter 5. So we've done chapters 1 and 5 so far in the book, making some progress there. And we'll talk a little bit about Enron and some of my opinions on it. Basically, one thing I was interested in, maybe I'll start with that. When you guys did your assignment that's on the discussion board, how did you or did you not feel an effect from the ChatGPT stuff? Does anyone want to talk about that? So, if you copied it, that's fine. I'm not gonna, your grade's in, I'm not gonna change anything. I don't really care. So, you can be open about it. You probably won't be, but you can be. So, is there anyone who wants to talk about how ChatGPT affected your handling of the assignment? No one? No one's brave? Anyone? No? All right. Well, if you think of something, let me know. Maybe you want to send me an email or something. So let me see. Okay, I see something in the chat. Okay, I see some chat comments. That's good. It made it easier for me to write the assignment. I read it, but I didn't use it for my answers. Okay. So I think some people did base their answers on it, which is okay. I mean, it's probably better not to. I think you're going to learn more thinking for yourself and reading the material. Obviously you're not going to learn much from just that short discussion that it provided, but I did notice that the writing was somewhat better across the board, which is fine. I mean, I know a lot of students here are ESL, English Second Language, and it's hard learning a new language. I never had to really learn. I've studied a few languages, but I never really mastered one, and I wish I had, but I didn't. My wife speaks 4 languages, so I'm like flabbergasted at that. But basically, she tries to teach me German. I've had a little German, and she occasionally would play around with it. But obviously, she's learning English as but she's doing a lot more to learn English than I am to learn German. So she also speaks Russian and Mongolian. So in any case, I think it's good, that it helps your writing, but I think also you need to practice writing without that kind of support. So I think it's okay to use that kind of support. That's a way to learn. But I don't think you want to do that all the time to really learn writing. Now, I mean, if you're just gonna, if you're gonna not live in the US, which I think is a viable option for a lot of people, then, obviously English is less important to you. If you're going to go back to, another country, English is less important. If you're going to stay in the US, if you're going to work in jobs that require, like, let's call them knowledge jobs, like, okay, somebody said I should have to get a better understanding. Maybe, I think it's helpful. It's like a summary of it. You're talking about Chat GPT. It might help to actually read the book and then read the Chat GPT answers and compare what you came up with and then develop your own thesis. I think it's important to remember that Chat GPT has a point of view. It's not objective. It's an opinion. And the reason is that somebody programmed it, and you don't know who that person is. So it's voicing the product of the opinions of the people that programmed it or the information that's been given, or a combination. So, it's been given access to certain information. For example, let's say it gives you access to the opinions. It has access to the opinions of the New York Times, but not to the opinions of the Socialist Workers' Party newspaper, The Militant, or I don't know if that's still in print, but you get the idea, or the opinions of the National Review published by William F. Buckley's heirs. He died years ago, but so it'll be like, maybe it gets like one point of view, but not these other point of views. So you're getting the point of view of the sources it relies on. It doesn't rely on all sources. So you got to keep in mind that you may not agree ultimately with what it's saying. So it's a source, but it's not, for some things it might be usable as, just a solution. But I don't think when you're learning and thinking that it does a lot other than, I think it's a good summary. The summary is probably better than I could do, but the content may not be what you agree with. So, keep that in mind. But I think it's good to help you learn writing. You can correct your writing and rely on it a little bit, which is fine. But you still want to learn. I mean, if you're going to work in any kind of knowledge job, like if you're going to be a banker or a lawyer or accountant or a corporate executive, or you're going to be a consultant, or, anything that involves communication and expressing ideas in English, you're going to need to learn how to write well. And I think the best way to do that, I'm going to put it on screen share for a second, is, all right, let's see. Let me get on the web here. There's the web. Here it is. So I'm just going to Amazon. Okay, Elements of Style by Strunk and White, 4th edition. I don't care what edition is unimportant. This is a very good book, Strunk and White, to read. I highly recommend you do. You can read it like a page a day. It's very short. It's like 140 pages or something. 107 pages, I just looked. And it gives you a very, very good, very concise explanation of how to write well grammatically. So you can read a page a day, practice it, and by the time 3 months pass, you'll have 100% improved your writing. William Zinsser, who also wrote a famous book on writing, was a established professional writer himself. His book is called On Writing Well by Zinsser. it's also a good book. It doesn't go into the elements of grammar. I don't think you need Zinser's book as much as you need Strunk and White. Strunk and White concerns really the mechanics, the grammar and stuff. That's what they don't give you in school for some reason, because of the way that educators have, the philosophy of education that they have. So they don't teach you what you really need. So basically, Strunk and White will edify you as to how to write very articulately. So you sound like you're a sophisticated English speaker. And the story behind it is that Strunk was an English professor at Cornell. He published a book of this book, or an earlier version of it, early in his career, and didn't do a lot with it. After he died, E.B. White got permission from the estate to revamp it. And E.B. White was very, very famous writer, wrote for the New Yorker. I think he wrote children's books and stuff. He's a very well-known writer. And when he came out with it, it became a national bestseller, if you will. I don't know if it ever hit the bestseller list, but it sold millions and millions of copies. Zinser, in his book on writing well, says that you should, if you want to be a writer, you should read Strunk and White once a year. Not just read it, but read it once a year. So that's how important he thought it was. Now, a lot of English professors say they don't like it, but they're the same people who haven't taught you how to write. So, I wouldn't worry about that too much. So basically, what it goes into is, the nuts and bolts of grammatical construction in English. It's simple. It's not that hard. There's nothing really difficult about it. So you can learn this fairly easily. And I'm not saying it's no work, but it's maybe not as exciting as looking at a TV series on Netflix, or seeing something on Instagram or something. But it's not that kind of fun. But it's easy to learn. So one of the things I noticed in a couple of posts, both in your class, the example I sent was from the other class, but I saw it in this class too. It's the same idea. It didn't really matter what example. So basically, when you write a sentence, like if you say, I ate the salad, it stands alone because there's a verb. All sentences must have a verb. Okay, and a clause is just a phrase, a group of words that have a meaning that it contains a verb. So the clause, when you say clause, you mean contains a verb. You can have a sentence with just one word. Stop. Okay, that's a clause because it contains a verb and it's a full sentence. In the English language, the imperative doesn't require a subject or an object. So stop is a sentence. If a clause does not follow a conjunction, then it is a main clause. So I ate the salad is a main clause because there's no conjunction. If you put a conjunction before, and what is a conjunction? It's just a joining word that joins a clause to another part of the sentence, usually a main clause. So there are two main categories of conjunctions. One is a subordinating conjunction, and the subordinating conjunctions include words like when, whenever, after, because, whatever. Okay, those would all be subordinating conjunctions. There's lists on the web. You can look up easily. There's all kinds of lists on the web of subordinating conjunctions. And the subordinate, when you start a clause with a subordinating conjunction, it cannot be a sentence. It's a dependent clause is another word for it. When I ate the salad. Okay, that's not a sentence because it starts, if you take off the when, then it's a sentence. All right, so if you write, if you start a sentence with a subordinate clause, you insert a comma at the end. When I ate the salad, I also ate the steak. Okay, so in this sentence, the main clause is I ate the steak. The subordinate clause is when I ate the salad. Now, if you put the subordinate clause after the main clause, you don't need the comma. So I ate the steak when I ate the salad. You don't need a comma before the ending subordinate clause. If you put a comma in, which would not be appropriate here, you are saying that the clause is unessential or unimportant to the sentence. Like if you say the house still stands, he said. All right, you're saying that he said is not essential to the rest of the sentence. Of course, that's not a subordinate conjunction. It's actually an incorrect sentence, but when you indicate, when you insert a comma before an ending subordinate clause, you're saying that what follows is not essential to the rest of the sentence. Okay. So basically, what I wanted to talk about, which I talked about in the email, is when you join two main clauses in a sentence, they have to be connected. Like you can't say, you have to connect them correctly. All right, I'll put it that way. So you can't say I ate the salad, I ate the steak. Okay, that is not a good sentence because there were two main clauses. I ate the steak and I ate the salad. They're main clauses because they're clauses that contain a verb and they don't follow a conjunction. You can't join two main clauses without what's called a coordinating conjunction. It's different from a subordinating conjunction. And the good thing about some of the coordinating conjunctions can also be subordinating conjunctions. That's another story. The coordinating conjunctions are easy to remember because although the word is big, it's actually a simple list of things. So you don't even have to remember the name. You can just remember that they all like football and they're all going to watch the Super Bowl, which is why they are fanboys. Okay. And the fanboys are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Okay, those are the coordinating conjunctions. That's all of the coordinating conjunctions. So whenever you join two main clauses, you can always ask yourself, have I inserted a fanboys? All right, now, let's say you want to write the sentence. So if you want to join the two main clauses, you can write it like I ate the salad and I ate the steak. Or you could say, I went to school, so I have a degree. All right, so you're joining two main clauses with a coordinating conjunction. There are other ways to join two main clauses. Besides a comma plus a coordinating conjunction or fanboys. You could say, for example, I ate the steak when I ate the salad. Then you're not joining two main clauses. You turned one of the main clauses into a subordinate clause. So you can turn the main clause into a subordinate clause by adding the subordinating conjunction when, and this is perfectly fine. You can also use a semicolon. So you could say, I ate the salad, I ate the steak. That's also perfectly grammatical English. You could also turn it into two sentences. So you could say, I ate the salad, I ate the steak. Okay, so there are a lot of ways to link two main clauses or independent clauses, another word for it. So main clauses equals independent clauses. It's easy to find a way to join them correctly. Main clauses equal independent clauses. But it's not correct to join them with a comma in general. The salad, sorry. This is incorrect. This is called a run-on sentence or comma splice sentence because you're joining two main clauses with just a comma. To make this correct, you could use a semicolon. This word, however, is called a conjunctive adverb, and you can use it nicely with a semicolon. So basically, you don't want to join two main clauses with just a comma. Now, one other thing I want to point out about this is that many of you Chat GPT allowed me to be a little more granular. That's good. The book link, yeah, of course. I certainly will. Yeah, okay, good. Somebody did that, but I'll send that around too. The salad and steak was eaten by yours truly. Okay, Jack. But basically, I hope I didn't get you too hungry. But basically, what you wrote, Jack, was actually, I should mention, was not ideal, and I'll tell you why. You want to get away from the I get off this now. You want to get away from the use of the passive voice. Hold it, let me stop share. And I will do it. I'll go back to share. So okay, so you want to go back, you want to avoid the passive voice. What is the passive voice? The passive voice is, instead of saying I ate the steak, you say the steak was eaten by me. Okay, you don't want to do that. All right, so in general, in English, all languages are different. And, the further away you get from the Germanic and Latin languages, the further you get away from English. English is basically a form of, it's a relative of German. And the people that originated English came from Germany, basically, the Angles and the Saxons. It's a German language. But it has a different format from the way German works now. So in German, the verb often comes at the end. In English, it rarely does. The way that you generally write in English is that you have subject, verb, object. And in English, it's much, much clearer to follow that format, subject, verb, object. When you use the passive voice, you put the object in the beginning. So you say, the steak was eaten by me, instead of I ate the steak. It's considered much clearer to say the second one, I ate the steak, rather than the steak was eaten by me. So always check your writing. And I know when we speak, we'll often use the passive construction. And we do a lot of things in speaking that you shouldn't do in writing. I mean, I would say also, as a basic principle of writing, if I can hammer anything home today, besides how to join two main clauses, it's you do not write the way you speak. Okay, the claim that, oh, we use our speech as a guide to punctuation is completely wrong. I know you may have heard that at times, like when you pause, you should put a comma. That's really not right. There are rules about where to put a comma, and people who know the rules will notice that you did it wrong. A lot of people don't know the rules, but there are people who know the rules, and those are not always the people at the lowest level of the food chain who know the rules, right? So basically, the better you are at knowing the rules, the better your writing is going to appear. So what I'm talking about is how to make yourself look more professional and how to be more convincing to the kind of people that you want to be able to convince. So, I may have started to say, or maybe in the other class, in my travels in the real world, I found that the people in the corporate world, especially when I worked at Johnson & Johnson, but also at International Nickel, put a lot of weight on writing that they did not have in the education system. So in other words, a lot of the people in the corporate world write better than your professors write. And the writing is a slightly different approach. It tends to be clearer and briefer. All right. So when I worked at J&J, the CEO at that time, Jim Burke, who was the brother of the CEO of Coca-Cola, Dan Burke, it was like kind of an odd thing. He had come from Procter and Gamble, and at Procter and Gamble, there was traditionally a rule back in the days when people used paper to send memos. There was a rule that no memo should be longer than one page. Okay, so J&J didn't stick to that precisely, and these things preceded Dan Burke, but there was a general rule that you want to keep the memos short. And so the idea was that you write clearly and briefly, and you should be able to summarize your main point in just a few words. And this is true, if you're trying to start a business and you're looking for financing from an investor, you need to write a business plan. When you take small business an entrepreneur, I forget the name of the minority small business and entrepreneurship or something like that. If you take that class, you will hopefully learn in part how to write a business plan. They should mention it and go over it. I think they're putting less emphasis on it now than they did 20 years ago, but you should learn a little bit about how to write a business plan. And it's essential if you're starting a business to know how to write a business plan. You have to write one if you want to get financing from anybody other than your mother and father. So basically, when you write a business plan, you need to be able to summarize the business in a sentence. Okay, you could call that an elevator pitch, you could call it a hook, whatever you want to call it. In journalism, it's called a headline, whatever you want to call it. You need to be able to summarize what you're saying very briefly. And that's true in any kind of communication. It's not just a big thing like starting a business. If you have a point to make, you should be able to say it in a very short amount of time. All right. So when you write something, start out with the main point and then marshal your evidence and do it clearly and use the active voice. Okay. So that said, let me get into a few things. I wanted to finish up. Oh, did I take attendance yet? I don't think I did. I got sidetracked there. Okay, which is good because you got the attendance stuff late. Let me get the attendance roster and I will take attendance. Okay. This is the 11 o'clock class. Okay, so I'm going to take attendance. If you're here, please let me know. So this is February 1st already. Time marches on. Farhad.
I'm here.
Thank you, Farhad. Ahmed
I'm here.
Alcor. Thank you. Mohammed Athi. Mohammed. Jenna Bell.
Here.
Thank you. Joseph Catanzaro.
Here.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, here, Prof.
Jiamin Chen.
Here.
Thank you, Jiamin. Janine Cola. Janine. Kermia Cyrus.
I'm here.
Thanks, Kermia. David Estorovsky. David. Marimar Garcia. Marimar. Monica.
Here.
Thank you, Monica. Who is that? Alexia Harrigan. Alexia.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks, Alexia. Danny Jiang.
Here.
Thank you, Danny. Yusuf Kahan.
Hey, Professor, I'm here.
Good. How are you doing? Salma Kahanam. Salma. Georgie Kermishlevi.
Here.
Hello, Georgie. Summer Lamb.
Here.
Hello, Summer. Hung Jian Lin.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hamdi Molly.
Here.
Hello. Ludley.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Ludley.
Hi.
How we doing? Famida Fatwari.
I'm here.
Hello. Emmanuel Plamakis.
Yep. I'm here.
Hello. Raquel Porteous.
Here, Professor.
Hi, Raquel.
Hi, Professor.
Ji Shan Ruan.
Hi, Professor. I'm here.
Great, thank you. Hello. Samuel? Samuel's here right now.
Morning, Professor. Here.
Hey, how we doing? Aaliyah Todd,
Morning, Professor. I'm here.
good morning, how we doing? Stacy Ergiles,
Hello, yeah, I'm here.
hello. Denasia Warner. Denasia? Jack?
I'm here, Professor.
Hey, Jack, how we doing? Yayin Jiang,
Hi, I'm here.
hello. Matthew Zhao,
Here, Professor.
hey, Matthew. Taryn Sander,
Here.
and last but not least, Christian Mendez.
Yeah, right here.
Hey, Christian. Okay, so I'm gonna call off the names of the people that did not answer the
Excuse me,
first time.
Professor.
If you're here, and I call your name, please let me know. I'm just calling the people I've not marked present, so if I don't call your name, it's because I marked you present. Mohammed Athi. Janine Kola. David Esterovsky. Marimar Garcia. Salma Kahanam. Denasia Warner. Okay, those people are not here. If you're here and
Excuse
your
me,
microphone,
Professor.
yes, yes, question?
Yeah, for the last time you didn't call my name.
Oh, did
And
you
the
just
first time.
register?
Yeah.
Did you just
No.
register?
No,
No?
I registered before.
Were you here last time?
Yes,
How strange. What's your name?
Yixuan Zhang.
Oh. Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Professor,
I
Professor,
got
I'm
you.
sorry.
I got you. Don't worry. I
Uh,
got you.
My name is
Sure,
Margaret.
Beth. Yeah, are you new?
Yes, I'm new. I registered yesterday.
Gotcha. Okay. Here, let me,
Margarita Sherbach.
Margarita Sherback. Okay. No
Thank
C-
you.
No C. Sherback. Okay. I will give you credit. Are you caught up already? Have you? Were you able to participate in the discussion board yet?
No, not yet. I just got it.
Okay, I'll leave it open. You can do that tonight.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
new as well, Professor.
Who's speaking?
Janaya Pratt.
You're new also?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can you, where are you? For some reason, you're not popping up here somewhere. So it's, I'm looking for your name here.
Oh, it might be under Naya. I'm sorry.
So it's PRATT
Yes.
and JANAYA, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So you two, you can participate in the discussion board tonight or tomorrow. I'll leave it open for a day or two, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Professor. I
Welcome.
appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, Naya Pratt, got it. Okay, so let's talk with the remaining time. Let's talk a little bit about the remaining material. We're almost done with chapter 5. So we've done chapters 1 and 5. So we're moving ahead. Basically, situation strength. A lot of
Professor?
people, yes.
Before you move ahead, can you talk a little more about situation? I forgot the term. I don't have the paper in front of me, but I think it was the last question or the second question on the assignment where we talked where chapter 5 spoke about organizational environment or situation can dictate how a person behave. Maybe perhaps if there was more rules or monitoring at Enron, maybe the guys would not have done
Yes,
what they did.
absolutely. That's known as situation strength. I was just about to talk
Right.
about
Thank
that.
you.
Yes. And I think socially, we live in an environment where the kind of behavior you see at FTX and at Enron is stimulated because of the ready availability of money. I think when they print a lot of money, when they create, not print, but create a lot of money, it becomes easier to draw investment into speculative schemes, and speculation is susceptible to fraud. I mean, if you say to someone, "Oh, I have a gold mine for you to invest in," it could be that the gold mine doesn't exist. And if they have the capital, then that draws the kind of people who would talk about a fictional gold mine to seek unearned money, obviously. So the kind of behavior that is associated with financial bubbles and easy money, low interest rates, is also associated, in my opinion, with the kinds of frauds we have repeatedly witnessed. FTX being the later one. Theranos in your textbook is also a great example, and I recommend that case study at the beginning of the chapter. It's quite, I found it riveting, and it's, you'll notice it's the same kind of people that get drawn into this. That they're pathological, they're psychopathic, they're charming, they are charismatic often, and I think the situation of the macro economy, not of a given organization alone, but of the economy at large, leads to this in many environments. Not, it's not a
So,
universal,
Professor,
but it's
on
widespread.
that thought, how different was Enron from the subprime situation that occurred in 2008, where it was more of a broader scheme of players, and these were intelligent people?
Well, I think, you're right that 2008 and 9 was broader in the sense that a lot of firms were engaging in rampant and unsustainable speculation with mortgage derivatives that they kind of were not willing to face that there was a bubble and that they had made bets that were way out of line, and they were justifying it by saying that real estate never goes down, which of course wasn't true. I mean, any financial asset goes up and down in value. And there's a great book, if you're interested in that, excuse me, I'll put it on the board. Let me clear all this stuff. Larry McDonald, I forget if he spells it with a A or not. Larry McDonald, a colossal with an A, colossal failure of common sense, which is his personal account of the collapse of Lehman Brothers. He was a trader there, and the story he tells is that they had made massive bets in real estate. It wasn't just derivatives. The way it was reported in the news was that, and it was true as far as it went, that there was massive derivative speculation. And what was also true, though, was that a lot of these firms had made massive bets in real estate, including Lehman. And the bets in real estate included direct ownership. He said in there that Lehman had owned several 100,000 private houses. So in other words, they had houses in the billions that they had bought in speculation. They had bought the largest office building in Paris and on and on. So, and a lot of derivatives. And the trading people in that area had concluded that there was a bubble and it was going to collapse and they should get out of it. And they went to the chair, I forget the guy's name, Fuld, Richard S. Fuld. And they went to this guy and they said to him, you know, we've got to get out of these trades. They're toxic. And the market's going to collapse soon. And he fired them. His response was to fire them. So, you know, whether that's as bad, I don't know, but the effect was similar, whether he preferred the fantasy of a never-ending real estate bubble to, you know, and somebody who's reached the chairmanship of a major investment bank has to have lived through a long series of these bubbles. So, I mean, he couldn't have been that stupid. So, but he was. So I don't know what the answer is, you know, whether it was due to, you know, the kind of corruption that we see with FTX, you know, which was just outright fraud, a lot like what Skilling resorted to. You know, and I think one of the things these things often have in common is that the perpetrators, you know, we usually think of crime as being like something that occurs on the street, and the criminal is, you know, physical, you know, and it's, you know, somebody poor. But in fact, these are people from the most elite backgrounds, and the crimes they commit often, at least on a financial level, I mean, they're not violent, but on a financial level, affect far, far more people than ordinary crime. You know, in this FTX thing, there were tens of thousands, I don't know how many investors, not in the US, they had been banned from the US, but they were doing business with tons of overseas investors who left their money with them, and they lost it because this MIT grad who supposedly was so ethical because his father is a famous regulation expert, an attorney who's a professor of law and a famous expert in regulatory things. You know, and his son turned out to be a complete crook. But people said, oh, his father's this or that. What does that mean, really? I mean, that alone kind of tells you how stupid some of these things are. And, you know, and so basically, you know, with Enron, the story in Enron, I've read it. I was once retained, I probably mentioned this, I was once retained as an expert witness on one of the Enron lawsuits. And so I read extensively on Enron. And so it's sometimes the stuff I read merges with the movie, but the people at Enron were all from elite backgrounds. They were from Wharton, Harvard. They were all from, you know, and Skilling himself, I know they mentioned this in the movie, he was a partner at McKinsey, but he's the youngest partner in the history of McKinsey, which is like one of the most, if not the most prestigious consulting firms in America, in the world. And he had been the youngest partner. And so he's a product of Harvard Business School, product of McKinsey. And he goes to work at Enron, and he's a complete mental case who like has no clue as to how business works, and makes all kinds of ethical gaffes and errors. And so you really got to wonder what is going on in our society. I mean, that's a huge question.
And Professor, on that question, as I was reading through, I don't think it's so much just an organizational issue or in an environment. I think it's more of Wall Street issue, because the SEC has, when you think about Madoff, when you think about the FTX, when you think about Enron, when you think about all these banks, the SEC seemed to turn a blind eye to Ivy League or, you know.
The claim that was made when Enron occurred, the claim was made that, oh, if we only have more regulations, so they passed Sarbanes-Oxley. And it was just a nonsense, one more nonsense thing. And basically, you're not going to ever eliminate these impulses. And when you have easy money, it stimulates them. And Wall Street is the chief arena where these impulses could play out. So you're always going to have this stuff. It's absolutely true. As long the easier the money, the more of it there's going to be. I think it's completely right. And so basically this idea of situation strength, you know, that evokes certain kinds of personality traits is going to bring out the psychopath next door, you know, maybe who wouldn't be that tempted in a more stable economy is so, you know, in contexts like Enron. I think that's absolutely right. So basically, the perception of rules influences how people respond. And so the context often drives whether people act ethically or not. If a situation is strong, then it evokes certain behavior types. If it's weak, then it doesn't evoke behavior types. Trait activation theory basically says what Raquel is saying, that some situations activate certain traits, and jobs that, for example, jobs, let's say you're in an advertising firm and it encourages creativity. The people who are creative are going to be more motivated to be creative. And so when you're in that kind of environment where there's a lot of encouragement for creativity, you're going to see the differences in creativity a lot more than if you're in an environment that doesn't encourage creativity. So differences in the context that encourage certain traits will increase the ability to differentiate among people with strong or weak traits. All right, so basically, you know, I say this when I teach HR, for example. I say that when you design a compensation system, you should use the personality traits or the kinds of traits that you want to encourage and integrate them into your compensation dimensions. So like if you pay more for productivity, you know, if you're an advertising firm, you should pay more for creativity. If you're a college, you should pay more for research and so on. That, in other words, the financial incentives should be integrated into the compensation system. I don't think many Wall Street firms integrate great integrity or great leadership into their compensation systems. Okay, so, you know, what you're saying is maybe they should. That, in other words, these kinds of behaviors in the short run do result in gains to the people who do them. But in the long run, of course, you know, if you look at what happened to Skilling, he went to jail for a long time. I think he's out now. But, you know, he has no career, no public presence. I don't think he kept much of his money. Some of them made off, you know. Rebecca Mark left before the collapse, and so she got to keep her money, and so did Blue Pie.
And
So
Dupai.
those people did, but usually they don't, you know, if they're there to the end. So basically, a lot of people who do these things, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people who do these things do pay for them, you know, and end up, you know, if you look at the the FTX guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, you know, it said that he might go to jail for 100 years. even if he doesn't, let's say he just goes to jail for 10 years. I felt that Skilling's jail sentence was far too light, and Fastow also, their jail sentences were far too light. But even so, I mean, they'll never be happy in life. They'll always feel like they were losers, and they are, so it didn't work out for them. So I don't think these things do work out a lot of the time. I'm not saying never. Is it true that sometimes a guy, is in the mafia and ends up rich and dies happy? Yeah, this does happen. But I think a lot of them do pay for it. They get killed, they go to prison, etc. So, I think there is a penalty to be paid for this stuff. All right, so just to wrap up the discussion on personality, and we should be aware that in addition to personality, ability is also important. And there are different types of ability, obviously. Cognitive ability refers to your mental ability. There's also a physical ability that includes things like dynamic strength or repeated effort, and trunk strength, which is like how strong your body is. And basically, ability does play a role in how good employees are. So employees with more ability will be better employees. However, if you look at the book, and here's another great book, I threw out a few books today. If you want, I'll put up the link for it. Press the wrong thing. The Millionaire Next Door. By Stanley and Danko. It's a very important book. I was very heavily influenced by it because it confirmed things I had witnessed all my life. If you know people who are successful and you come across some, you see certain patterns, and they're the same patterns that they talk about in this book. So let me get, how do I get the well, here's the link for it anyway. Here, let me put this on the screen. The Millionaire Next Door was updated in 2010, I guess. Obviously, things changed slightly. When it first came out in the late 90s, $1 million was worth more than now, and a larger percentage of people now have $1 million than before. But it's still true. A lot of it's still true. You could use $2 million or whatever. And basically, what they found is that millionaires, they might be slightly smarter than average. They're somewhat smarter than average, but not hugely. But what they do have is a lot of self-discipline. So what they found is that people who accumulate more wealth than others are people who save more. It's that simple. So if one secret to becoming wealthy is to simply put away 10 to 20% of your pay. And whenever you get paid, put away 10 to 20%. Obviously, if you put in 20%, you get more money than 10%. And you do it whenever you get money, you put away. What do you put it in? We can talk about that a little, but I would say in the long run, it doesn't matter. If you want returns in the short run, buy what's low, buy low, sell high. So you don't buy on tips. One time, one of my colleagues at the college, I won't tell you who, another professor, we were at a party or an event at the college a few years ago. And he said to me, oh, you should buy marijuana stocks. They're doing really great. I kind of knew it was ridiculous, but I put $1,000 into it, and today that $1,000 worth about $80. Okay, so basically you never buy like on stock tips from other people because they're always idiots. And I don't mean to say my colleague's an idiot, but when it came to that, he was an idiot. So basically, you don't listen to stock tips, and instead you buy what people are fleeing. So if you were to buy marijuana stock now, I wouldn't laugh. I'm not saying to do it, but I'm just saying it would make more sense. I don't know anything about it, so I have no opinion. But basically, buy what's down. So you buy, there's an expression that supposedly came from Baron Rothschild: buy when there's blood in the streets. So you buy what's low and you sell what's high. So right now, what's high? It's still tech. Tech is still high. It fell by a third, but it's still relatively high. And basically, I think I was saying in the last class, or if I wasn't, I should have been, that you should read the newspaper a little bit every day. You don't have to read it in detail, but at least look at the headlines. And, if you do, I think you'll start to focus on, or hopefully you'll start to focus on news that influences your financial well-being, your business activities, or your investment activities. And basically, there's a lot of news now, a lot of stuff is happening now that's drastically changing the world. I mean, ChatGPT is one of many examples. The Ukrainian war is one thing, and the Fed is huge. So, later today, Chairman Powell is going to be speaking about interest rates. So basically, a Fed meeting today, as the journal comes up, it's decision time. The Fed is poised to raise its benchmark rate by 4.5, by a quarter percentage point. It could raise it by a half. If they raise it by a half, the stock market will probably go down a little. But what's more important is what the Fed's policy statement is. So they're going to be talking in 2 hours. And Chair Powell will, besides saying what the rate increase is, will make some comments about it. And this is what's really going to affect the markets. Like, if he says that the inflation is still too harsh, and we're going to raise rates a lot more in the next year, the markets will fall. If he says, we decided we've raised it enough, and we're at the right interest rate level, then the markets will take off. They'll go up. So this is kind of a mini case study of the relationship between the Federal Reserve Bank and the financial markets. Okay, and also all business activity. It's not just the stock market and bond market. It's all business activity is affected heavily by the interest rate. And I think what Raquel was saying is that these kinds of policies affect moral behavior as well. And I think it's true. I think basically when there's easy money to be made through speculation, more people are going to speculate. And if you look, the most famous book on the origins, on the early stock market bubbles, there's, I'm sure there's a lot of history on it, but there's a famous book, which I highly recommend, called by Charles Mackay, Extraordinary popular delusions and the madness of crowds. And McKay, and this was then updated about 20 years ago, I think, or more, no, fairly recent, I mean, by book standards, fairly recently, by a guy named Kindleberger, who wrote a book, Panics, Manias, and Crashes. This is all great history. While we're on the subject, there's an older book by John Kenneth Galbraith, a great institutionalist left-wing economist, who wrote The Great Crash. I think the title is actually 1929, The Great Crash. They're all really excellent books. I think all three of them kind of depict the psychology, and it's really crowd psychology, and it's OB. I mean, it's really OB. How the markets become frenzied by this speculative pressure, and in turn, which in turn evokes behavior like FTX and Enron. So, I think a lot of people didn't get the question about situation strength right, and I think that's really important, because I think people need to be held accountable morally, and if they do something criminal, they should be held accountable for it. I have no, I'm not a good, this kind of idealist that's, it's environment and all that. But I think, if somebody does something wrong, they should be punished. And that's how you stop it. That's how you limit that behavior. And but it is true also that the environment does stimulate this kind of behavior, and to a large degree. If you read McKay, I'm not sure if he spelled it with an A or not, maybe no A. I'll check. If you look at McKay, the earliest bubbles. No, he did spell it with an A. I got it wrong. Okay, so he did spell it Mackay. And you can get that on Amazon. The earliest speculative bubbles were the Mississippi bubble in France, which was speculation on the land that became the Louisiana Purchase later, and in England, the South Sea bubble. And both speculative bubbles occurred not long, McKay doesn't talk about this, but I'm telling you, not long after the establishment of the Bank of England. So basically, speculative bubbles have followed the soft money policies. In America, this occurred a little bit later. Was the first speculative bubble in America of a large scale was speculation in the bank, speculation in the stock of the bank of the United States. So in other words, the first national bank, the first bank of the United States, first national bank, the United States first national bank, was occasioned by a massive speculative bubble led by a crony of Alexander Hamilton named William Dewar, D-U-E-R. And he borrowed from almost everybody he could in New York City, and induced a speculative frenzy in the stock of the first bank, the first national bank, the first official federal, the equivalent in effect of the Fed. It was somewhat different in the way it was set up, but the idea was the same. And basically, he ended up, of course, the bubble crashed, and he ended up going to debtor's prison. In those days, you went to jail if you couldn't repay money. And so it went on from there. So basically, this is all related. So the inflation we're experiencing, the corruption, it's all related to federal policy. And in turn, I think organizational behavior is heavily influenced by federal policy as well. if you look, let me get off this whiteboard. If you look, we're almost out of time. In the book, the book talks a little bit about, well, one thing it mentions I didn't talk about is terminal versus instrumental values. We'll talk more about values and ethics, but terminal values are end states. They're what you're aiming for, whereas instrumental values are methods or modes of behavior. And your book talks about the different generational waves, or that start out with the baby boomers, who were born from 46 to 64, and then generation X was from 65 to 80. I guess that would be your parents' age mostly. Your grandparents probably be boomers, or maybe a little before. And millennials would be from 81 to 2000. And most of you would either be late millennials or Generation Z, which was born from 2001 to 2020. And basically, a lot of people make much of these generational differences. I think there are differences. I think technology does affect like communication style and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think such differences are overrated. I think if you go back through history, there have always been psychopaths, there have always been altruists, there have always been extroverts, there have always been introverts. I think certain kinds of behaviors are pretty eternal. Okay, somebody just told me they were here for attendance. So basically, I think the generational differences are sometimes overrated. They do exist. I think, the kind of technology that's available now changes it. We'll see this with the social dilemma when we watch that basically, John Haidt gets on that movie and he says that teenage girls in the last 10 years have committed suicide at higher rates than ever in history because of the social media, and that could well be true. And I think things like technology do affect people's attitudes. I think people work less hard now than they did, let's say, a century ago, and I think there's been a decline. And I think a lot of that is due to paper money. I think Americans have been spoiled by the way the world economy has been set up, and so there's some generational differences, but I think also the differences are easy to overstate. Okay, so that said, are there any questions about the material or anything? If not, we're just about out of time. So let's see.
You posted something about assignment for February 1st.
Say it again.
You posted something about assignment for February 1st, but on the discussion board, we have something due on the 6th.
Today is February 1st. The assignment for February 1st was the one due, the one that
For the FTX and the Enron,
yeah,
looking at the personality.
February 1st was today. In other words, I just wrote that you were supposed to be reading the textbook and so on.
Okay, all right.
Discussion board or anything.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. The Martin Shkreli case involved similar dark triad traits in the big five personalities. A federal jury found Shkreli guilty for lying to investors about the performance of two hedge funds he ran, defrauding investors in his first drug company, Retrofin, and skimming money from Retrofin to pay back investors at the hedge fund for losses he covered up. Very interesting. Okay, yeah, and basically, yeah, you're going to see a lot of this. This is a little before your time, but there was a big case involving the TV figure Martha Stewart back years ago, and she ended up going to prison for insider trading. But the one who was really responsible for it was someone like this guy Shkreli. He was like a drug czar, and he committed fraud, massive fraud. There've been many of these instances. There's, you know, when you've got all the speculative money involved, when you're printing a lot of money and people have the money to invest, it draws fraud. I mean, I've been defrauded myself a couple of times, investing in real estate, and basically is, you know, it happens a lot. So, you know, one thing I should talk about, you know, maybe a little bit of, I do in some of my other classes about how to avoid being defrauded. I think it's very important to learn how to be careful about being defrauded. So yes, I did take attendance, and that is it for today. So if there are any questions, please see me. If you got here late or something, please see me and I will give you credit for attendance. Okay, so have a nice day, and I will see you on Monday, and I will send around the Zoom link this time. No, I won't be late with it. Okay, so have a nice weekend, and
Professor, I have a question. This is Margarita.
sure.
For the first discussion, we need to read the book, Understanding the Workplace.
No, you should read What Color Is Your Parachute? So I assign that for next week. But you should be for the first discussion board that was due on Monday. You should read the chapter 5 in the textbook and watch the movie Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room. Okay, so you can get the movie online, and the textbook is you know, it's on sale, you know, at the various textbook vendors.
I'm sorry, what is the name for the textbook?
The textbook, Organizational Behavior
Organizational behavior.
by
Okay.
Robbins and Judge.
Yeah, I have this book. Mhm.
Okay, so read chapter 5 and watch the movie Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, narrated by Peter Coyote. Okay,
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Have a nice day.
Okay.
Hey, Professor, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that you got me for attendance.
Denasia,
Yeah,
what's your last name again?
Warner.
Yeah, I got you. Let me see, just make sure. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, were you here? Why didn't you answer when I called your name? Was there a reason?
I don't know what was going on with my mic, but it wasn't working. I don't really know what was going on.
Okay, try to pay attention, okay, and be here, so you know when I call it, you'll answer, okay?
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Professor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also wondering if you would have me for attendance, because I was having also difficulties like with my mic.
Yes, David. Okay. Yeah, I did not get you. Okay.
Yeah,
Again,
I came
try to
on
make
from a
sure your
distance.
mic is working so I can give you attendance.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take
Have a
care.
great day.
You too.
I'm here, Professor.
Yes, ma'am.
Wondering if you got me for attendance. I was far from my phone.
Okay, same thing for you, Mohammed. Try to, I got you. I saw you had written something, so I got you. But try to get the mic working, okay? I think you had that problem last time too.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else have an issue?
Yeah, excuse me, Professor. Do you mind to check my attendance from like January 25? Because I was here
Say it
like
again.
every
Which one? I
lecture.
didn't quite hear you. What did you say?
Do you mind to helping me to check my attendance? Because I think someone have a similar name to me. I'm not sure if I like requesting someone else attending.
I have you marked present.
It's like from January 25.
I have you marked present for all 3 times.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. Sorry about to bother
Okay,
you.
hold on. So you are, hold on, don't go away. Something just happened to my attendance roster.
Okay,
Let me get your name. I have you present all 3 times, so you don't have to worry.
okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
And so on. Sometimes Excel does weird stuff. Okay, so I have you present today, okay?
Thank you so much. Hope
I
you
have
have
you
a good
present
day.
all 3 times, so you're doing fine on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good
Welcome.
day.
Take care. Take care, your Kalon.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for today.